Welcome back to Roundtail Restoration, everybody. My name is Chris. Next to me here is the motor from a 1964 Triumph TR4 that I've rebuilt. In my hands here is the Maddox cylinder leak down tester from Harbor Freight. So today we're going to hook this up and see how my rebuild went. I'm going to explain to you the difference between using this cylinder leak down tester and a regular compression tester, and then the advantage of this test and also the limitations that I have here because this motor is sitting on a test stand here and not inside a car. So thanks for watching. Let's get it sorted. So like I mentioned, I've got the Maddox brand from Harbor Freight here. These aren't really all that inexpensive. They're about 80 bucks full price, but I was able to source a 40% off coupon for the Maddox stuff, so I picked this up. Came to, whatever 40% of $80 is. So we'll open this up, we'll go through what's in here. This is not a commercial for the Maddox brand. You can pick these up cheaper at Amazon or something like that. I just, it's convenient for me to get it from Harbor Freight because if I got problems with it, I can always return it without too many problems. I also have a compression tester here, also a Harbor Freight band, so we're going to go through and compare the two and see how this one is different and discuss real quick how this is a better test when the compression tester tells you that you've got low compression. Starting with the compression tester here, it's just essentially a hose connected to a single pressure gauge. They can measure up to about 300 pounds or so. It's got a little relief valve here, and this is the air compressor quick disconnects. And then these three, you would choose whatever appropriate spark plug hole threading pitch you have and screw them in. And then you rotate the motor, usually using the starter. And as the motor rotates and builds compression in the piston or in the cylinder, this gauge will go up and will peak out at whatever you've got there. And there's a little check valve built in somewhere in here and prevents that pressure from leaking back out. So you can get an indication of how much compression the cylinder builds. What that doesn't tell you, however, is if you have a low compression, where you're losing the compression. So that's essentially kind of a no-go test. But now the leak down tester is a little bit more complicated. You can see I've got two gauges here, the pressure that I'm putting into it, and then the pressure that it's reading inside the cylinder. Again, you have a hose in here, much like this hose, except there is no check valve. This hose here, this connection here is going to be for shop air, so you need a compressor for this. One of those little pancake compressors or something that you can pick up. You see the guys putting roos on with them to nail guns. You don't need a whole lot of volume to flow here, so you can pick up a little air compressor if you don't have one, but you do need one. Unlike the compression tester, you don't need any of that. And then the other hose here will plug into a particular cylinder that you're testing, and essentially what we'll do is we'll pressurize that cylinder and then look over here at this gauge and it'll tell me how much pressure I'm losing. So where the compression tester is essentially a go, no-go test, like I told you, if you have a low compression, you don't really know where it's going. Well, there's only so many paths for leakage from a cylinder. You can leak through an intake valve or an exhaust valve, or you can leak down past the piston rings and into the crankcase. So that's where your air is going to go. So when we pressurize this gauge, I'm going to bring it up to about 80 pounds or so, and I'll look at the other one, and I'll probably hear some airflow, and we'll look and see how much different the test gauge is, or the results gauge, whatever you want to call it. And then I'm going to listen in those particular spots to see if I can figure out where the air is going. So because I don't have an intake or exhaust manifold on this guy, I'll be able to stick my ear right up to the head and listen to the ports for the exhaust and the intake. And down here at the dipstick, I'll be able to pull the dipstick out and kind of listen. There's a little felt pad in here, so it'll become muffled and then clearer as I pull it out. And that'll let me know where the air is leaking from. Because I'm on the test stand, however, I've got some disadvantages that I've got to deal with. One, you are going to be pressurizing a cylinder. The motor's going to want to turn on you. So some way I've got to be able to stop the motor from turning. I don't have a flywheel on this guy, so I can't use one of those little gear teeth holder things. So what I'm going to do is essentially bolt a piece of bar stock into the back of the crankshaft where the flywheel would bolt on. And as the motor tends to rotate, that bar stock is going to run into the mounting brackets of the engine stand and it'll stop it. The other problem is because of that, I can't really stop the motor on a dime exactly where I run it because I'm going to look for an interference from that bar stock. So because I want all these valves to be shut, or at least for the intake and exhaust or the cylinder that I'm testing, I'm just going to go ahead and pull the rocker arm assembly off. And what that's going to do is essentially remove all the spring tension and effectively put the piston at top dead center. So the test does tell you to put it at top dead center, but the point of that is to get those valves shut. Because I'm going to be removing the rocker assembly, all the valves are going to be shut, so I don't have to worry about really where the motor is. So we'll connect that bar stock up to the back here, get that bolted in real quick to prevent that from rotating. We'll get the intake, or excuse me, the rocker arm assembly off, get that guy out of there so we can prevent the valves from opening at all. And then we'll go ahead and we'll pressurize this thing up. The other disadvantage that I have is it tells you want to do this test hot, just like a compression test. Obviously, I can't get the motor warm. This thing hasn't been run, so I'm not going to have the chance for the metal to expand or anything like that. So I do expect some leakage here, but again, it's going to probably give me a gross indication that I've got problems of a valve leaking by significantly or the piston rings leaking significantly. I expect some leakage again, but hopefully I won't find anything too gross. So let me go ahead and get the bar stock hooked up and then get the rocker arm assembly off, and then we'll get this thing connected up to number 1 piston in through the number 1 spark plug, and we'll conduct the test. So I have the rocker arm assembly loose here. I don't have it removed just because you don't really need to. You just want all the tension off. So make sure that all your rocker arms are loose and then nothing contacting the valves. And as long as that's good, you're good to go. So I just have these spark plugs in here hand tight. So we'll go ahead and pull number 1 spark plug. And then your hose here, if you can see, it's got a big fat O-ring on the side of it here, so your compression test will be the same way. So we're just going to go ahead and screw that in, and you want to get it tight, but you don't have to kill it. I also got a little bit of oil on it just to provide and help me get the O-ring lubricated, so it provides a little bit better of a seal. So no wrench or anything like that on that. You just want to snug it up. So now that's good. So now this is the end that's going to plug into the test manifold, which I'll get here in a second. And then we got to get shop air in here. And again, I got that little pancake air compressor. So that may kick on during the test. So if it does, I apologize for the noise that it's going to cause. But we'll go ahead and now get this thing connected up, get it pressurized, and we'll see what happens. Got the air hose connected here, ready to pressurize. Got the motor hopefully being stopped from turning. So this is a regulator here. You got to pull it out to kind of unlock it, and then you'll start to press it up. So don't let that, otherwise you can't turn it. So don't let that mess you up. So go ahead and start pressing it up here. And again, I'm going to be looking for, I don't know, between 80 and 90 pounds. So this is the supply, and this is the test. So you can see right now, granted, it's only got 35 pounds in it, but I'm only losing a pound or two. And you can hear the airflow, I believe. So there's 80-ish, and it looks like we're at 70, trying to get to 75 or so. All right, I'm going to take the microphone off my sweatshirt here and go around and listen. So now I'm over at the intake and the exhaust. I don't really hear anything. There's the exhaust. All right, so the air compressor popped on here. Here's the intake. Probably don't really hear anything there, but we'll come around to now the dipstick. And I think you can hear that. Can hear that pretty clearly. So my leakage that I'm looking at, about 5 pounds worth, which is well within that 10%, is coming down past the piston rings. So not unexpected again, because those haven't been seated, and I don't really expect a perfect test here, but there you go. So now we'll go and we'll move to number 2, then to 3 and number 4, and we'll test all the same stuff. I'm not going to bore you with that, but if I get any leakage anywhere, I'll point it out to you, and we'll complete the test. So I got number 3 pressurized here, the intake valve. Don't really hear anything, but the exhaust valve, you can hear stuff. So, and I can feel it just a little bit. So definitely got some leakage past that exhaust valve. Now I know one of the exhaust valves, and I think it was this one, needed a new seat on it. So hopefully that's not too bad, and it's just something that heating up will take. Still, if you look at the pressure, I'm right at about the 10% here. So I'm not willing to, go, oh boy, that's it. I've got to tear this thing back apart and double check that. But that's something to look at. So when I get back to warm temperatures, I can check it again. All right, everybody, that's all I got. Thanks so much for watching. Leave a comment below. Tell me what you think. With the exception of that number 3 exhaust valve, everything else checks out good, or at least good enough given the status of the motor and where it is and the limitations that I have doing a test on the test stand. So not too bad of a test. If your compression is low and you want to know exactly where that leakage is going, or you just want to know where that leakage is going anyway, a leak down tester is the way to go. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good rest of your day. Cheers.